This is the lane running down from Mill of Beith to Davies of the Mill, a abandoned building, previously maybe in a heckling or lint mill. The end of this lane comes onto the road that runs down beside the Warlock Craigie waterfall. There was a mill up there as well as a miller's house. Here's the gable end of what would have been the old mill. Much modified though, used as a dwelling house rather than a mill for many years after it ceased to function as a lint or flax mill. Here's the stream that runs down, which would have supplied the water power to turn the water wheel, which would be on the wall at some point down there. This was a manicured garden at one point. There are still remains of old gardening, plenty of snowdrops, daffodils and other signs of intense gardening activity. And here's a little beech hedge. The link to all the gardening, to all the activity here, is that the main claim to fame of Davies of the Mill is it was the home for a number of years of an early pioneer of the vegetarian, almost vegan movement, Dugald Semple. Dugald Semple was born back in Victorian times and lived a life of lecturing, travelling around in a horse and cart, but like a sort of gypsy caravan type of structure. He earned a lot of his living from giving lectures. And in the First World War, he was an advisor on alternatives to meat due to food shortages. He's also famous for not having lived in buildings for many years, instead choosing to live in a tent or other structures, particularly army-style tents. He did marry, and his wife seemed to have sufficient funds for them in later life. He eventually ended up living in a bungalow and even had a car. But he was friends with many of the early people involved in vegetarian and other activities. For instance, he was a friend of Mahatma Gandhi, and he went to several conferences abroad and spoke passionately about his beliefs. He wrote a number of books. He even advocated eating plants we weren't even cooked, for instance recipes of raw potato, things of that nature. He frequently appeared on the radio and was well known for his regular broadcasts, particularly aimed at children. In the meadow back here seems to be remnants of his days. Large numbers of daffodils, snowdrops, planted out simply for pleasure. From the days of the lint mill, there was a right-of-way running through a well-marked path that runs up towards Coldham, not far from St Inan's Well. The noise in the background is the nearby quarry, which seems to be the main reason why this property has not been sold for any form of redevelopment. Still old farm machinery lying here. This, for instance, is a potato howker, a tatty howker, and the ruins of other buildings in the background. Most of these trees here seem to be hazels, so it may be that they were planted to provide food, him being a vegetarian or practically a vegan. Here's a small well. Apparently he dug and connected it to the house by an underground pipe, so he got his water supply internally. And all around us are the remains of overgrown garden plants and other planted trees. Dugald was a very early pioneer of the simple life, vegetarianism. He wouldn't touch eggs or cheese, milk.